Are you losing sleep over the rising costs of your child's education? It's time to stop worrying and start building a brighter future for our children today. Stay tuned to find out how. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Greg Iverson. We are going to talk about funding your kids' college with rental real estate. The beauty of it, you can do what I did and you can do it before they're even born. However, as you'll see as we move along and talk through some of these scenarios, best to execute it by the time a child turns 3 years old. I'll explain why in just a bit, as well as explain who I am. I want to give you a quick background on why I drew this course up. So I've been investing in real estate for 20 years now. It's become more and more clear to me the different benefits of real estate. While yes, I've known them all along, really getting more clear over the last year. What does that real estate, what can it actually do in terms of financial freedom, in terms of financing, retirement, kids' college? For a lot of years, I just looked at it as, I know it's the right path and I know it's working. Last year, I've really started to pay attention to, okay, this one property, holding it for 15 years, what does it look like? What does the appreciation look like? You know, the value at that time. And what can that money do? Can it pay for a children's college? Can it, fund a retirement or a part-time employment, so on and so forth. So we're really going to get pretty granular today. I think you'll find it fascinating. I have to be honest, when I first started putting pen to paper on these different concepts and the math behind it, absolutely blown away by it. So that being said, let's jump in. Okay, so who am I? Been investing in real estate 17 years now. I just turned 42 years old. I have 3 young children, a wife that I am absolutely in love with. This is my life right here. And really, this is what drives me to continue investing in real estate. I've started to recognize those benefits and really see what they can look like going forward. So my goal, and what we'll talk about today, the 3 kids you see up in that corner here, that's what I'm after, is financing their college rental real estate. So we'll really dive into those topics today. Like anybody else, the post-COVID era, we're just appreciating the small wins as they come about. Obviously, a lot of us were locked up for a period of time, learned a lot in that experience. And it's really shown me is that, the freedom to travel, the freedom to enjoy life is something we need to take advantage of today and really be appreciative of. That being said, thank you again for being here. Anytime I talk about rental real estate, I like to preface it by saying it is not all sunshine and rainbows, meaning oftentimes when you look online, read books, listen to podcasts, things like that about real estate, you hear the positives of it and how great it is. You'll hear today the positives of it and how great it is. That being said, I always like to start out and say it's not always that way. There are plenty of bumps in the road. Like anything else worth pursuing, there will be tough days. To me, those tough days are well worth, where it can take us. But please understand, there are bumps along the way, things that you have to navigate, and you've got to be super clear on why you're doing something. For me, if it's financing kids' college, if it's reaching financial freedom, things like that, when there are bumps in the road, when tough things happen in rental real estate, like they do in anything else, much easier to navigate and stay in the game. And that is the key. It's not to be knocked out after doing it for a year, it's to do it for the long haul. Investing in real estate is not a get-rich-quick thing. It's something that you stay in the game for a long period of time. After 5, 10, 15 years, you really start to see it snowball and start to pay off. But it doesn't happen overnight. So that being said, this right here. So this is a property of mine. This is actually my wife in the picture here, as well as our tenant. Everything was going along hunky-dory. At this point, we had somewhere around 75 or so rental properties. Everything was perfect. Management, maintenance, no real problems to speak of. And then all of a sudden, we've got this tree over here that comes down in a storm and pretty much takes an entire house out. Now, fortunately, everybody was safe. All worked out just fine. Certainly some headaches, things like that. My point in this is these types of things happen. And we've got to be prepared if we decide to endeavor on the principles, the concepts that I'll talk about today. We have to understand these types of days will come. And, it's nothing but, in my opinion, the price for admission. If it were simple and these types of things didn't happen, everybody would succeed in this. It's the ones that understand that these things will happen, but not let that stop them from pursuing their dreams that really succeed over the long haul. So what are we going to talk about today? We are just going to talk about funding college with real estate investment. We're going to jump into that. I'll show you some true numbers, actual case studies on some properties that I have actually bought this year. So in this real market, we are in 2023. It is September of 2023, so we're in a little bit higher interest rate environment. The examples I'll go through with you are not what worked when interest rates were 3%. This is what's working where interest rates are today, where inflation is today, so on and so forth. So I think it's very important to note that I could show you things that worked 10 years ago. The reality is those probably do not work the same today that they did at that point in time. So we'll do some real life scenarios, and then we'll wrap up with some resources and some books, some things to some things that I read about real estate investments, some things that will really help to guide you, as you dive in and take on some of the principles we're talking about. So again, who am I? I began investing in real estate in 2006 with a line of credit. Essentially what I did was I approached my parents. At that point in time, I did not even own a home. Approached my parents and asked them if I could take out a line of credit, a HELOC, on the home that I grew up in. So on my parents' home. My dad, who's a real estate appraiser, was all for the idea. My mom, quite honestly, I believe, she's probably still convinced that the house is in foreclosure, even though they've long since sold it, probably 10 years ago, sold the home. So my point in telling you that, certainly some are risk averse. I was very, very fortunate in that my dad believed in what I was doing. Being a real estate appraiser, although he was not ever necessarily a real estate investor, he had been around real estate, had seen others that had become successful doing it. So it was much easier sale to him. So essentially what I did, took this home equity line of credit against their home. For those that remember, we were headed into a pretty bad real estate market. The collapse that started around 2007, 2008, carried on for several years. That allowed me the opportunity to buy a lot of properties that were below market, oftentimes needed rehab, things like that. But able to buy them below market, rehab those properties, refinance, and do it all over again. Pay my line of credit off and do it all over again. For those that read about rehabbing properties and things like that, they're probably familiar with the BRRRR strategy: buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. So that was the strategy before I knew what that is that I was pursuing. I did one, it worked. So I just repeated, kept doing it over and over and over again. So that's essentially what led me to about 75 units, held in rental, bought and sold hundreds of homes. But that's what kind of got me started. And fascinating part about that, it is not without risk, of course, but fascinating part about it is all of that was started with zero money down. It was started with a home equity line of credit. I did not have a significant nest egg to start with. And the beauty of that is, and what I hope this course today and what we're talking about today, will help to trigger minds that, yes, a lot of the principles we'll talk about involve having a down payment. However, there are ways to do it without. You can start in real estate without money down. Maybe not as easy as you hear about on TV, but it is certainly possible. So anyway, that's who I am. I've invested in single family homes, multifamily, farmland, vacation rentals, some commercial, retail, remodel. Enough about me, let's jump in. So funding kids' college with real estate. The premise here is one property per child. So essentially what you're doing is you're buying one rental property per child that you have. So I have 3 children. I would want to buy 3 rental properties by the time they turn 3 years old. Reason for that is the goal here is to finance them for 15 years. By the time they turn 18, that property is paid off. You can either sell it or refinance it and use those funds to pay for their college. That's the whole idea here, and I'll run through all the math behind it. Through appreciation and principal pay down, it's fascinating. That one property can ultimately finance or fund one child's college. So think about that. If I have 3 kids, I don't need to be a huge landlord. I could own 3 properties in my neighborhood. I can own those for the long haul, and I can pretty much check off funding college today. I mentioned in the beginning, I'm 42 years old. I have young kids. I can pretty much check the box. If I ask my father about college, when he thought about financing college for my brother and I, of course, my brother went to a private college, so that was considerably more expensive. But if I ask him, when did you start to think about college expenses? How are you going to finance it? So on and so forth. He would tell me pretty much the day you went off to school. That was the day that I figured out, okay, I've got to cover college. Fortunately, worked incredibly hard, got us through college, which I have nothing but appreciation for. But I think about the blessing that I have in discovering this concept right here, this stage. I have a child that's still in preschool. And at this stage, I can check college funding off the list. I can know that whatever happens in life, if I just hang on to this one property, their college will be taken care of. That's my gift to them. So, and then again, when they turn 18 years old, selling or refinancing, taking those proceeds, and that's how you fund their college. So let's do our first case study. Again, for those that do not know, I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. Kirkwood is a suburb of St. Louis here. This is a case study on a property that I actually purchased in March of this year. So March of 2023, again, in a higher interest rate environment. Many struggling due to inventory, inflation, real estate taxes are up. This is a real life example of what's going on right now. So a 3-bed, 1-bath house, 1,100 square feet in Kirkwood, Missouri. I paid $204,000 for it. My down payment, $40,800. I asked for a seller credit because I wanted to limit some of my out-of-pocket expense. Asked for a seller credit of $4,000. In essence, I paid $200,000 for this property. Just had a little bit higher sales price to be able to limit my out-of-pocket expenses. So my total, $43,000 to buy this 3-bed, 1-bathroom home in Kirkwood, Missouri. I'll show you where it starts to get a little bit fascinating. So some quick financials on this. Let's dive just a little bit deeper. Monthly rental income on this property is $2,095. I borrowed $152,000 at 6.5% interest on a 15-year fixed loan. For those that think we can only get this to work if we use a 30-year term, what I'm showing you is that is not always the case. Now, in certain cases, yes, it is. However, on a 15-year fixed loan, I was able to get this property to cash flow, and ultimately then it will be paid off in 15 years. So what does that look like? Principal and interest on that $152,000 loan, $1,324. Again, fixed rate, so that will stay the same. The taxes on this property, real estate taxes, are $243, and the homeowner's insurance is $185. So my total, now this is just my mortgage related expenses, not any property management, maintenance, things like that, $1,752. Think about that. Essentially, I have $343 left over each month to handle maintenance, handle vacancy. If you choose to have a property manager, if you live maybe in a market where you cannot manage the property, maybe it has to be out of state, there's still plenty left over here to cover a property manager, as well as vacancy, maintenance. I prefer, and I think the model works best if you manage them yourselves. I'll also say I think it's a very powerful thing to be able to teach the next generation, to be able to teach a child how to manage that property, so on and so forth. A topic for another day, but I choose to manage my own. They are very, very close to my house, so they're easy to manage. I drive my kids by there. I'm already teaching them those principles. Anyhow, we've got 15-year loan, so this property will be paid off in 15 years. Cash flow about $343 per month, just based on mortgage-related expenses, taxes, homeowners insurance, not maintenance management. So here's where it gets good. All right, so this home, what will it be worth in 15 years? Investor.gov, write this down, investor.gov, very powerful tools. And that's something I'll show you how money can multiply over time using investor.gov. In this case, I'm using a future home value calculator. So I'm essentially figuring out what will that home be worth in 15 years. Now, this is an estimate. Nobody knows what appreciation will do. It certainly could go sideways, could go down, or it can do what it's done over the last several years, and particularly in this neighborhood where this home was purchased, appreciation last year was somewhere around 10%. So we're going to use a very conservative number. You look up historical appreciation rates, really nationally, it's somewhere in the 3 to 5% range that real estate will appreciate over a long, long period of time. So we're going to use 4%, okay? So it's worth $204,000 today, 4% over 15 years. Future value of that home is $367,392. It's also paid off. You have a free and clear paid off home worth $367,000. You have two options at that point. You can sell that home. You're done being a landlord. That's it. You've reached the objective. Sell that home, take that money, finance the college with it, move on down the road. Or you certainly can refinance that home. Do in that process is you avoid paying a tax bill right away, and you avoid some commissions and things like that. I don't think there's a right or wrong, but it is fascinating that if you decide to sell that home that's worth $367,000, after you pay a realtor commission, closing expenses, and then we're assuming 25% capital gains taxes, net proceeds $249,827. So not nearly as much as $367,000. However, still a significant amount of money to used to finance children's college. But you can see the difference there. If you would hold on, preserving quite a bit of that equity as opposed to selling, but I'm not here to tell you either which way. I think it's fascinating looking at the math either way. So again, we have 249,827. So what we want to look at next, what will college cost in 15 years? So this is the fascinating part. So I looked up in the year 2038, which is 15 years down the road, what will college cost? What we came up with, as you can see here, national public two-year college, 21,615. Four-year in-state, 37,310. National public four-year out-of-state, 65,000. National private four-year, 85,739. So what does that look like then? 2 or 4 years. So national public two-year will cost 43,230. So obviously you'd be able to finance that. National public four-year in-state, 149,241. So you'd be able to cover that and have about 100,000 left over if you sell that property. National public four-year out-of-state, 260,287. So virtually covering all of that if you decide to sell that property. If you decide just to refinance that property, you can cover that without question. National private four-year, 342,958. So again, if you decide not to sell that home, you can pull off covering that entire cost. If you decide to sell that home, you're still covering a pretty darn good portion of it. As I tell my wife all the time, and she's not real wild about this idea, my answer to this is I will encourage them not to go to a national private four-year college. Whether I win or lose that battle, time will tell. But as you can see, that one house will virtually cover, or if not cover, their entire college experience. And this is for tuition, fees, books, room and board. This is everything associated with college, estimated in the year 2038. Now, here's where the comparison gets fun. So this is investor.gov. Again, you'll remember initial investment was $43,000. That was my total out of pocket to purchase this home. Let's suppose I decided I don't want to be a landlord. I don't want to mess with real estate. Not worth it. I'm going to put that $43,000, put it away, and that's going to fund the kids' college. Let me show you something fascinating here. So $43,000, we're going to put it away for 15 years. We're just going to put that away. No more monthly. That's going to finance the college. We're going to estimate an interest rate of 10% based on the S&P 500. On average, what it's returned over the last nearly 100 years, somewhere in the 10% range. So we'll just use that. Can you earn more? Certainly. Can you earn less? Certainly. Let's use 10% for now. What does that number become? So in 15 years, that $43,000 is $179,621. Still a staggering amount of money. But if you compare it to our previous slides, even after paying taxes, realtor commissions, buying that one rental property would give you $249,000. Huge difference. If you decide not to sell it and you just have that asset sitting there, it's worth $367,000 as opposed to $179,000. Double. By buying real estate versus just putting that money into the S&P 500, it's a double. It's twice. That's a significant difference. I won't go into all the details of why that is, but it's essentially through the art of leverage. Leverage is the fact that you can borrow to buy real estate. With $43,000, you can control an asset that's worth $204,000. That $204,000 asset is appreciating significantly, compounding at a significantly higher rate than that $43,000. So really through the art of leverage, that's the beauty of real estate that unfortunately for the most part, the stock market does not allow. So again, real estate's a clear winner. You've got $250,000 versus $179,000. One thing I will note, and this just to help keep it simple, doesn't take into consideration tax benefits, any cash flows you might make along the way, so on and so forth. I'm disregarding those just because I don't want to overcomplicate, but I will say there are other pillars, other parts of this real estate investment that are even more attractive than just what I laid out. But to make it simple, that's the difference. Now, we talked in the very beginning. Let's suppose the roadblock is that $43,000. I'm going to walk through. We talked a little bit in the beginning about that BRRRR method: buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. I'm going to jump into that here next. So what you just saw was assuming you have that $43,000 available. Again, if you have 3 kids, $43,000 times 3, so 120, 130,000 or so. If you have that, you can stop right there. I laid out the plan for exactly what you need to do. If you don't have that, here's what I did. Now, I will, again, I'd like to point out it can become exponentially riskier doing this strategy because you're remodeling homes, you're looking at trying to buy homes at a discount, so on and so forth. So there's more risk involved, particularly if you're not in that market or don't have reliable contractors, reliable support in that given market. But let's assume you've got all that taken care of and you want to know more. Let's jump in and take a look at it. So again, the roadblock, you don't have the 43,000. So we're going to use the BRRRR method. So we're going to begin college savings with 0. So you don't have anything to start, but you want to buy that property. You want to control that asset so that you can do what we just saw in that previous example, 15 years down the road, be able to fund kids' college. So essentially what you're looking for then, looking for a property that is in need of repair. It could be a home that's just dated, maybe has not been remodeled for a little bit. Maybe unfortunately there is some sort of a foreclosure or something, but that property is not what would be considered like retail market value. It does need some work to get it up to where it would be habitable or where it would be considered a retail sale in good condition at the end of the day. So step 1, we're going to acquire the property. So we want to seek out property with potential for sweat equity, just like what I described, properties that maybe are in disrepair for whatever reason, just need general updating, those types of things. Essentially what we're looking for, and I want to make this, I know these are complex, some complex terms and complex concepts if you've not done this before. So I want to try to keep this as simple as possible while still giving an idea how it works. Looking for a property where your all-in costs, so your purchase price plus your repairs, is 75% of what that property would be worth. To make it simple, let's say you buy a house for $50,000, you put $25,000 in. So you have an initial investment of $75,000. What you're looking for is that home, after you make that initial investment, is worth $100,000. May sound crazy. I can tell you it happens every day right in front of our eyes. We just have to know what lens, we have to know what we're looking for, identify the right people to help us to find those. And we also have to be willing to pass over, properties that are not a fit, that do not fit this mold right here. But I promise you, if you look hard enough, they're out there. Utilizing then either a private lender, probably heard the term hard money lender, or a HELOC, even friends and family who may want to loan money. Utilizing that, you would borrow, again, in that scenario, you'd want to borrow that $75,000 on that asset, on that home that will be worth $100,000. I'll show you how this works. So that's acquiring the property. That's what you're looking for. Step 2, refinance that property. So once you've remodeled it, you have that, in that scenario, you have that $75,000 invested in this property, utilizing just a traditional loan. So you could use Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, you could use a bank loan, a lot of options out there. You pay off that $75,000, you take a permanent long-term rental loan for $75,000 on an asset that's worth $100,000. So if you're following me, you're realizing quickly, you just created $25,000 in sweat equity. The way I always like to describe it, you created $25,000 out of thin air. That's essentially what happened in this. Is it simple? Can everybody do it? No, but like I said, it does happen every single day. So what this does then, by doing that, it allows you to acquire this property without any money out of pocket. If you're following me, that $75,000 came from either a private lender or a line of credit. So it allows you to have out-of-pocket expenses for down payment, rehab, closing costs, so on and so forth. So again, I have to preface, not always easy, but it happens every day. I've done it plenty of times. And I'm actually going to walk through a scenario with you that I just did this year as well. So this was in March of 2023 as well. This is Maryland Heights. So this is another suburb of St. Louis, Missouri, where I'm located here. Phenomenal area. excellent schools, so on and so forth. 5-bed, 3.5 bath, single family home that I bought in March of 2023. Acquisition price was $275,000. The repairs required were $25,000. So very, very little in the way of repairs as you look at the whole scheme of it. My all-in purchase and repair costs were $300,000. So total, if you're following me, I paid $275,000 to buy it, $25,000 to repair it. All in, I'm at $300,000. Appraised value. Now, this is the part that you do have to be selective and you have to look and pass over, again, several deals to find this. However, the appraised value on completion in this, which was in May, again, it was a pretty quick rehab overall, $400,000. So follows the model that I walked through in just a few minutes ago, where I have $300,000 in this property. It's worth $400,000. So all in, I am at 75% of the value. Reason for that 75%, I won't go into all the nitty-gritty details, but it allows me to have financing for that entire $300,000 where I don't have to have any money out of pocket. Again, I was using $100,000 as an example, makes the math a little bit simpler. This is the exact same case. 75% of the ultimate value, which is $400,000, that's the ultimate value. 75% of that, $300,000, that's my investment in this property. So to make it a little more clear, I created $100,000 in equity, $100,000 in sweat equity without any money out of pocket. Again, created money out of thin air. This allowed me to buy this property with no money down. And I'll show you how that'll finance kids' college as well. So go one step further. Rented on June 26th of this year for $2,950. Here are the details of it. So 4-bed. So I mentioned in the previous slide, 5-bed, 3.5 bath. Here in St. Louis, we don't technically count the basement in that bed and bath count. So as far as the county and an appraiser would be concerned, this is actually a 4-bed, 2-bath house. However, the reason it rented for $2,950, which is, I don't want to say that's high in our market, but that's a good rental price for this property, is because it had that additional living area in the basement. Again, purchase price all in with purchase price and renovation, $300,000, down payment 0, no seller credit. I did have about $5,000 out of pocket for closing expenses and things like that, just to keep it all clean. Monthly rental income, $2,950. Principal and interest. So now this one, I'm going to change it up just a little bit from what we previously talked about in the 15-year scenario. This one, I could not get to cash flow on a 15-year loan. So what I did was I took it to a 20-year loan. So I borrowed $300,000 at 6.5% interest, did a 20-year fixed rate loan, gave me principal and interest of $2,237. Taxes on this property, $269, insurance, $135. So that's homeowner's insurance, $135. So my total, again, $2,641. Similar to the last one, I have about a $300 cushion left over. That's for maintenance, management, vacancy, so on and so forth. I had to do a 20-year in this scenario because the 15-year would have made it to where that property does not cash flow. I'll show you where it gets pretty good, though. So again, we'll put this on the same future home value calculator. It's worth $400,000 today. Let's assume 4% appreciation. Now, even though we took out a loan for 20 years, we're still going to factor the same thing. What does this property look like in 15 years? So 15 years, this $400,000 house is worth $720,377. Significant amount of money. After paying, again, we'll figure we pay that 7% realtor commission, pay some expenses associated with the sale, but then we'll also have we've got our mortgage payoff. So we did a 20-year loan. We're only 15 years in. So the mortgage is not totally paid off. There's about $114,000 left on that mortgage, and we're going to pay about 25% capital gains taxes. So our net proceeds, $375,856. So again, we did a 20-year loan to salvage or to help maintain some of the cash flow, still sold the property, or of course you can refinance it, but we're assuming selling it here. Still did that in 15 years. Gives us net proceeds, $375,856. So then let's go back into the fun part here. So this Maryland Heights house, now this one will fund everything. Year 2038, again, same slide we had previously, what does college cost? As you can see now, this one will fund national private 4-year college. It can also fund out of state with some left over, 4-year out of state. It could essentially finance 2 kids' college for 4 years of in-state and then have some left over. National public 2-year, it can finance a whole Brady Bunch, So again, giving 2 different scenarios. One, in the very beginning, that Kirkwood house, that was assuming you have the down payment, anywhere from 20 to 25% down payment to secure that property, buy it, let it go for the long haul, either refinance it or sell it. And then ultimately that funds kids' college. You don't have that down payment available. That's where this Maryland Heights example comes into play. Using, again, a HELOC, so a home equity line of credit, which if you remember from the very beginning, that's how I started everything. Or using a private lender, a hard money lender, we're still able to acquire that property. This is riskier. It's harder to find. Does every home check this box? No, certainly not. You have to look and be willing, again, to pass up several to find the right one. However, it's there. And as you can see, this is a real life example of what happened in this climate where interest rates are today, that this ultimately will be able to finance my youngest child's college. And I did that with no money out of pocket. So hopefully, in summary, and I want to jump into some resources and things, hopefully this has really opened your eyes to the power of real estate investment. There are so many different directions to go with it. And what I've often found, you hear the term financial freedom, retire with real estate. You hear that thrown around. The reason I wanted to jump on today and put this together and really lay out specific examples are because how do you really apply that? When I think about the presentation I just went through, when I think about that tells me that using either one of those 2 scenarios, depending on if I have the down payment or not, and then multiplying that by the number of kids I have, I can finance their college 1 house apiece. I have 3 kids. I can do 3 of those Kirkwood houses, or I can essentially do 1 Kirkwood house and I could do 2 Maryland. I could do one Maryland Heights house and 1 Kirkwood house and finance all 3 of their college. Again, at my age, my kids are incredibly young still. College is barely even a thought in our household at this time, but I can tell you it brings me a lot of satisfaction, helps me sleep at night, and brings me a calmness, knowing that no matter what happens, their college is covered through those properties that I bought just this year. I hope this has been valuable for you. I'll wrap up with a few resources. Take a look here. These are books that I find incredibly fascinating, both along the lines of just theory on real estate investment. There are some that you can truly, apply. The Challenge by Robert Allen is more of a technical book that will teach you some concepts. Rich Dad Poor Dad, if you select nothing from this list, I would encourage you to at least read Rich Dad Poor Dad. That's the book that I read when I first got out of college, set me on that journey of becoming an entrepreneur, investing in real estate, so on and so forth. Rich Dad Poor Dad, absolutely phenomenal. And the other one I would mention, The Millionaire Next Door. Fascinating as we're talking about children financing their college. Ultimately, I think about also this, the power of what I just showed you, teaching that to children, teaching that to the next generation. The bummer about schooling nowadays is that is not taught. And that is incredibly important. That's their financial piece and their financial lives in the future. That will help set them, their children up if taught those principles now. These properties, I can teach my kids the concept that I just taught here. And if they do it right, that same Kirkwood house, that same Maryland Heights house could become theirs. They can rinse and repeat. They can take out a loan to finance their college. They can hang on to that property, pay it off over 15 years. They can use that same property and that same strategy to finance their kids' college on down the line. The power of being able to teach this to the next generation, absolutely mind-blowing. So I hope you found this valuable. Again, if you have questions or want to talk further, drop a comment for us. Would love to engage with you and answer any questions you may have. Thanks again.